Welcome everybody back to Flooring by the Numbers Live. It's been a while since we've been on the air. We've just been so busy, haven't we, Andre?
Yep. I mean, busy doing Halloween. I think I gave away more candy than there was actually candy available in the stores. I mean, the kids went. They ravished it. They loved it. We had such fun.
Well, I mean, you got it easy in terms of being scary. You don't even have to dress up, do you?
I know. Actually, you're so right. When I wasn't around, more candy went. When I was around, less candy went.
All right, let's get going because we've got an exciting show for you today. We're going to take you through what we call the business health test. It's about mining for treasure in your business. And, there's a huge amount of opportunity in all the flooring businesses we look at. And because we're flooring by the numbers, we actually use those numbers to be able to, identify and mine for that treasure. So we're going to take you through what we would do in a strategic planning session with you. We call it the business health test. Give you a little simulation of what that might look like, a little brief snapshot. And then if you're interested in us doing that for you, we'd be more than happy to do so. So let's get right into it. And just in terms of a little bit of a backdrop, I wanted to share, a couple of slides with you, just for some context, because in order to bring those financial statements into a little bit of relief, we like to turn them into a little bit of a story. And as ever, Andre, our famous three characters: revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. And how those characters work in your business is a metaphor for how the income statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows work. So you don't need to know any of that. We're just going to bring it to life through some simple metrics. And of course, obviously, vanity is all more about the sales, bringing that revenue in. And your sales teams, all revenue is good revenue. But we're going to tell you there's some good revenue and there's bad type of revenue. And then sanity is your team that watches the costs, make sure that your gross margins are right, making sure that your SG&A is in the right kind of place. And, vanity and sanity work together as a team. And then our favorite character, the king, he manages the cash. Your flooring business consumes a lot of cash just by the nature of the business. And we want to be able to manage our cash flow so that the king doesn't get any surprises. And so we have three characters, and then we have two building blocks that you're familiar with. The first building block is your income statement. Everybody's very familiar with how we turn revenues into profitability. It all flows down that income statement. And then the one that is less familiar is the balance sheet. We call that the wealth creation engine. And how the characters and those two building blocks, work together is depicted in this slide. And if you've seen one of our earlier shows, this is how it all works. So your sales team goes out and makes sales in the form of revenue on the left-hand side of that chart. We bring it in at a certain, gross margin. And at the bottom of the income statement, we spit out, retained earnings out of our money-making machine. And that's like gasoline or rocket fuel, which we feed into the balance sheet in the form of, equity. And any business can be funded either by equity or debt. So we'll talk a little bit about debt management today and equity. But those fund all of the investments that we need, our cash, our non-cash, and our working capital items. And the whole thing just goes around and around. And now that we understand how that works, we can turn it into a little bit of a story, which is five.
I love all this, and I really, this is our, this is our history, really. But I wonder if you can just go back to the previous slide for a second, please, just so that we can humor a couple of.
So as you can see, I'm trying to keep these shows a little shorter, but I know we've got so much stuff that we sometimes go over things too quickly. I understand.
Right.
Yeah, Go ahead.
And I think this is really important in the context of today. If you think about it, the way that we look at the balance sheet, basically, this wealth creation engine. And, Mick, if you think about it, if the requirements of our business, in other words, the investment we have in our business, right, increases. And you mentioned that the only way we can fund the business is through debt and equity. Is that correct, right?
Yep. Those two bottom boxes, your money and other people's money. Absolutely. Equity and debt.
Right. So the amount of additional equity that comes into the business, right, is part of that rocket fuel, right? Is part of that funding environment. So if our investment growth is greater than the equity contribution, what happens?
Well, we're going to have to find money from somewhere. We're going to have to borrow that money.
There you are. It's a simple. So when people get, because I really, I've had a lot of feedback with this little diagram. Remember, we even used to call it the stupid diagram, but because it's a little bit of fun. But if you think about it, when people just get the understanding behind this, it's very, very powerful concept. Because unfortunately, there are certain belief systems inside our commercial flooring community, and one of those is, if it's not a job cost, it's not a cost. And one of the things that people don't know, or they know, but they tend to not want to know, inside that income statement, how much is actually left to fund this, our future investment, or actually it's funding the current investment. So the whole issue with that is, we look at our income statement, we often look at, how much is the EBITDA or what is the profitability, etc. We don't really have a big focus on how much are we leaving inside the business. And often, if we don't leave enough, we have to fund the difference with debt, right? So the real thing is, when, as owners and as good managers, what we're wanting to do is at least say to ourselves, okay, the amount of equity that we put back because of our retained profit. So the ultimate dollar that's left after we paid our taxes, after we paid our distributions, after we've done everything inside our business, that retained profit. If that retained profit is greater than the required investment, then we really are building on solid ground, aren't we, hey, Mick?
Right.
And very rarely do you hear that discussion from a strategic level. You hear how much is the EBITDA, how much is this, how much is that, and it never gets connected to the requirements of the business. And because it's hard, that's the only reason why.
And what we know, Andre, also is that those margins, those operating margins or EBIT is actually very, very low. So it's actually quite a challenge to generate healthy equity in this business. So we have to be hyper vigilant in being able to manage that money making machine more, how should I say, thoughtfully.
Right. So, and that's why, Mick, we've spoken about this a few times, but, we are relatively passionate about it because, ultimately the only way you really create a healthy balance sheet is, you are a specialized provider, or you damn big, or at least you are in the space of becoming very big. And that allows you, because remember, the equity is a dollar-driven element. It's not a percentage-driven element. It's a dollar-driven. How much dollars do I need to manage the growth of my investment? If my equity dollars are not enough, I need more debt. So that's, if you're not either very, very specialized in terms of your value offer and lower revenue, that is more equity in the end. So there is some real strategic decisions that come around, these three little characters that we have here. But anyway, I think that's an important point. So let's move on. Let's keep this going.
Okay, well, I was going to go then to, now we've got the characters and the building blocks. We can go to the fact that we can build a story around. I mean, every story has characters. We've got vanity, sanity, and the king, and we've got some basic building blocks that help us build our narrative. And so when we look at a business, when Andre and I look at a business, we look at it through the lenses of 4 chapters, if you will, in a book. Number 1 is, are we growing? Do we have good growth or bad growth? Because we can be getting bigger from a revenue perspective, but you as the owners are working harder, and you actually might be making less money if you're bringing the wrong kind of revenue in. So we want to look at that growth quality. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is all about profitability. Are we able to take that revenue and convert it into superior profitability, or are we discounting just to get revenue aimlessly? So chapter 2 is all about profitability. And chapter 3 is all about how efficient our wealth creation engine is. And in particular for flooring companies, most of your balance sheet is consumed with, working capital, which are receivables, inventory and underbillings, and, balanced by our payables. Now, chapters 1, 2, and 3 all combine. So they're the input chapters, and they all combine to give chapter 4, which is cash and cash flow. So when we work with a lot of business who are struggling on the cash front, they're diving into the cash, and the seeds of cash consumption are actually consumed in the first 3 chapters. So we have to go into different places if we want a better outcome of cash flow excellence. And all 4 chapters combine together how effective is our income, our money-making machine, times the efficiency of our wealth creation engine gives us our wealth creation metric, which is return on capital employed. So when we parlay some of the numbers later, we're going to put them in this construct so that you can easily understand them. Andre, do you want to have some commentary to that?
Really, the beauty about the story is, Mick, that from a strategic viewpoint, we want to influence 2 things in our business. As good managers, that's what our goal is. Our goal is to influence the quality of cash, right? So that we always are in a good cash standing. And one of the things that we are very strong about is, cash is a competitive weapon. You have lots of cash, you can create a competitive advantage through cash. So from the way that you manage your financials can very much impact your decision-making capability within your strategic direction of your business. Mm-hmm. So we want to, those are the outcomes. So on the right-hand side page, that is what we want to achieve. How we achieve it is with just 3 critical building blocks. And strategically, what we need to be able to do is to manage those, those inputs, the growth input, the profitability input, and the balance sheet management input. Those 3 things. And when we do that well from a strategic viewpoint, over the long term, we get an outcome that is a very, very strong, financially driven business. And there's nothing, as an owner or as a good manager, whichever way you want to look at it, there's nothing more happy. I mean, hopefully that's a good way of expressing it. There is nothing more happy than having the confidence at night to go to bed and know that my bloody balance sheet is, it is as strong as Fort Knox, and that's the satisfaction at the end of the day of really having a good business. So I love it when people really get involved in this, because it does make a difference in the thinking.
And we got one more fun slide for you, which is we like to think of the financial statements and this story approach to be able to give us a treasure map, if you will, of all treasures guarded by dragons. That's how you know it's valuable. And in the business, the dragons that you have to slay is, number 1, bringing in the right kind of revenue growth that is cash accretive. In other words, it doesn't it doesn't necessarily suck cash. If you bring in new customers who don't pay you or take it forever to pay you or hold on to retainage, that's going to consume cash. Obviously, costs that are hiding within the business, we're going to uncover where those are so that it can stay, in your pockets in the form of profit. And your cash is consumed by receivables and underbillings also when it could be in your pocket. Andre, you and I often ask the question, are our clients flooring companies or are they banks? Because they seem to like lending their money to general contractors.
Well, I mean, when you look at the balance sheet in zero other context, you would say that would be the case, and to the point that it's a little bit embarrassing. I mean, we never realized that we went into, we thought we were going to go into the flooring business, and we're actually in the banking business. But
we can talk more. We can talk more about that. And then how you scale your business and build long-term wealth. We're all about helping organizations build for the long term, build to last, and you've got to have underpinning disciplines and systems to be able to do that. And we love the fact that many people have been in this industry for multiple generations sometimes, and they have very, very smart, gut-based, intuitive capability. But that's got to be reinforced with some good numbers, some good objective decision making. And we want to take the number phobia out of the numbers so that we're flooring by the numbers, and the numbers set you free, don't they, Andre?
Yeah, I mean, Mick, this is the cool thing is, we have this little expression, passion for intuition, powered by evidence, and we really love that, because that's it's such a nice way to build the way that our people think. And part of what we do in our academy, and hey guys, here's the deal: you join the damn academy. It's non-optional. All right, so please, I want you to join our academy, and you're going to get incredible value from it. We know this. And your people are there.
There's a little plug for it. You can go to our website, flooringbythenumbers.com. You can see the Flooring Academy in the menu bar at the top. Click on that, and there'll be a little video to explain, what the Flooring Academy is about. But that academy, it will absolutely improve your business understanding, fundamentals, and overall performance. So we've distilled the essence of our combined 20 years of flooring experience across 60 different companies. You can't find this level of insight and methodology anywhere else.
Right. So, and I guys, here's the thing. I know this is fairly new to the industry in terms of, how do I develop my organization, make my organization better, and have my people being able to go to a central environment that is also involved with others, right? So the Flooring Academy is live. It's very, very, very live. It's very interactive. And we have, this whole ability to collaborate with our like-minded people. So please join the Academy.
Yeah, and the first thing that we do when you join the academy is going to go through this kind of process. So what we're going to show you next is how we would do a strategic review of your business and identify improvements in your business that you can implement that would more than pay for the academy investment. So we're going to take that with you. Or if you just want to do this from a strategic planning perspective, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But what we're going to take you through now is the business health test. And I do apologize if you're watching this on a mobile device. Some of the numbers might be hard to read, but you can always go back to the YouTube channel, look for me, Mick Holly, and you can find the recordings of all of our shows. So if you can't see some of the numbers, or you want to play this back again, please go there. So Andre, I know you've got some numbers that are going to set us free, and we're going to talk about a pretty typical commercial flooring company and what some of their numbers tell us.
Right. So, Mick, here's this. So, first of all, this is not any one of our specific clients, but it is a representative, I think, a representative sample of, I think I consolidated it was about 12 to 15 sets of financials. So, just put them all together and said, okay, let's look at what a representative, at least from what data we have. So, these are actual financials. And they can't be manipulated because of the fact that we have to have a balanced balance sheet and a good income statement. And what it came out to be is something to this very, very simple way of just sort of introducing our typical flooring company. We need to give this company a name. What is this? This company is called Flooring by the Numbers. Let's call it, okay. And
they're not good enough to be that. We'll call them Acme.
Okay, Acme Flooring. Wow, Mick, I promise you, you're the most creative guy I've ever met. Unreal. Fantastic. Okay, so what we got is basically just a little bit of a history, just to give it a bit of context, to let people understand what's going on. We have, right. Remember, I like looking at this as sort of pre-COVID, COVID, and maybe post-COVID. So that gives us a little bit of, okay, now I know people can say to me, well, there's a bit of a distinction, 2019, yeah, that was pre-COVID. Okay, so, that's before the Chinese came and gave us this. And then the 20 is COVID. And the most recent numbers that we got from this portfolio, so as you can see, they're reasonably up to date at the end of August. So we got 2019 full 12 months. We've got 2020 for the whole of COVID, full 12 months, and then we've got actuals up until the end of August for the full 8 months. And what we try to do is to, when you're dealing with, a full 12-month period versus an 8-month period, you need to annualize a little bit so that you can, sort of get a good comparison, right? And as you can see, our business, hey, Mick, what did we call this, Mick? Acme Flooring, right? Okay. So that and the reason why we called it Acme Flooring is that we can be at the top of the yellow pages, isn't that the very first page of the yellow page?
That would be AA Acme.
Oh, okay. This is all right. We guys, we're gonna have to rebrand our flooring company. It's now AA Acme. So you see how quickly we can make these decisions. This is beautiful. Okay, so we got AA Acme. It's about a $24 million pre-COVID. Moving slightly down to about $22.5 million during COVID. And we'll talk a little bit. It's absolutely fascinating to see some fairly significant shifts that's happened during our recent times. And then a little bit, let's call it post-COVID, the 8 months to the end of August 2021, we sort of recovering a little bit to around about the $23 million. So what we're noticing is during this period of time, reasonable degree of flatness, right? Nothing exciting about our sort of top line revenue. And the delivery of
the exciting part was they stayed alive. So that was good.
Well, yeah, no doubt about it. A very tough time, so then our margins, of course, pre-COVID was sort of about 25.5%. Okay, so that's the direct contribution margin, gross profit margin per se, and moving down during the COVID period at about 23%, and then ultimately coming back at about a slight decline of about 22%. So in 2020, we still managed to eke out a reasonable margin by the looks of things, and but still in decline. All right, so that's what we're noticing, and our EBITDA going from about 3.6% profitability in 2019 to about 2.4% profitability in 2020. So we still made money in 2020. right? And we are actually losing money in the last 8 months. So very, very small, pretty much break even with a 1.1% negative EBITDA.
And just to put a stake in the ground at this point, if you look at the December 2020 full year of 2.4% EBITDA, we don't think that's acceptable for a business. For the amount of risk that you're taking, that's not acceptable. And we work with several companies where we've taken it from that level to, in the teens. It is possible. It can be done. We have the best practices. We have the methodologies. Do not accept this number, please. Sorry, Andre.
No, and I mean, yeah. So yeah, and then just sort of some context, just a little bit to make it easy for everybody. We have total debt of about $2.5 million, and what you can notice is, remember, we're using the word net debt, so that is the total amount of cash. And incorporated in the total debt. So we look at that, and you can see obviously our debt has grown a little bit to the end of August. So that's a little bit of a profile. Now, Mick, now that we understand the context of that, what we want to do is we want to move to our 5 chapters, right? And look at our business from the context of how does the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, how do they all integrate and make those 5 chapters really meaningful that we discussed. Okay, so let's just move into our scorecard. And what we get is exactly those key elements that Mick introduced to us a few minutes ago. The money-making machine. What are we doing from the ability to make money? And what we want to know is how effective are we converting our money-making capability into our wealth creation capability, driven by the ability to generate cash. And then at the end of the day, we measure it exactly as we stated, 5 critical environments. Quick overview. How are we growing? How are we converting that growth into superior profitability? How effectively are we managing our balance sheet? And then the last 2 metrics is all about the outcome of those 3 key chapters, being cash and our return on capital employed. We call that ROCE. Really nice measure, something that can be very, very effective in your strategic.
This is a flooring by the numbers metric. We've called that balance sheet efficiency metric the hunger measure, because it's really how hungry is your balance sheet. The more hungry it is, the more it will consume your cash. The leaner it is, the more that cash can stay in your pocket. So the hunger measure is a flooring by the numbers description of that phenomenon.
Right, I love it. And guys, hopefully that, for those of you that are listening so far, and we're trying to make these numbers more personal. You know what I mean? So people can, it's not so technical about, the way that accountants look at it. This is the way that we need to look at it from an operating viewpoint, from a way that we can understand what's happening a little bit better. So essentially, our organization has grown by 2%. So this is the amount of growth from the end of December 2020 till the current period, which is August 2021. So we've seen a small amount of growth. Now, that during the COVID period, there was a decline in delivered revenue, installed revenue, right? And that was about 6%. So we did move the dial a little bit from 6% decline in revenue growth to a 2% improvement in our revenue growth, right? So that hopefully, gave us a little bit of a boost. Now, let's have a think about our boost from our profitability viewpoint. We noticed that as at the end of August, we delivered $15.4 million or installed $15.4 million worth of revenue. And at the end of August, an EBITDA of $165,000 negative. So we have a negative situation. And we've seen this happen quite frequently in the current period, that yes, people are more, they're more positive about the future, but numbers, the pure operating numbers are relatively low during this current 21 year. But, people are looking at 22 being, a little more robust. So that's good news. Now, the important part that we have to think about here, Mick, is how much are we retaining? Remember, we spoke about this a lot. We are consuming. So our retained profit actually is declining by $500,000. So if our balance sheet is growing, if we need a greater investment, and we've got a negative $500,000 worth of retention that we're going to give back to the balance sheet, obviously that is going to impact our cash. And as you can see already, guys, look at our cash flow statement. So isn't this a beautiful way of looking at it? How much money we're making, what is the impact on our balance sheet? And then more importantly, what are we doing from a cash flow viewpoint? So from a cash flow viewpoint, as you can see the importance of this retained profit. We start our cash flow with that amount of retained profit. So our retained profit of $500,000 negative is impacted by, of course, the depreciation. So we add back that depreciation, which is a non-cash item, and that gives us basically our EBITDA. Now, people love this EBITDA metric, don't they? Because they call this the cash flow metric, basically. They love that metric. And look at the difference between our EBITDA, which is negative $269,000, negative $269,000, but our net cash flow is negative $1,059,000. So what if we said, hey, EBITDA is our cash metric, and we'll live by that? Well, the real net cash flow for the rebranded, beautifully re-engineered AA Acme flooring is, $1,059,000. So you guys, the big story there is really watch the difference between EBITDA and net cash flow. Net cash flow is the total amount of cash that you have consumed in your business during a given period of time. So that is a very important part of what you need to think about. So now, when we look at our net cash flow being a negative $1,059,000, we start saying, okay, well, hang on, something's happening here. This is weird. This is out of whack, right? So really, what has happened? We need to be able to answer these questions in a very easy and quick way. So now we can understand sort of two things have happened. Number one, our working capital has consumed $600,000 of cash. Now, guys, we've only increased our revenue by 2%, yet our working capital has increased by $600,000. So we got to get a little feel for this. And Mick, what did we talk about this thing called the hunger measure? This tells us, right, how hungry our balance sheet is. Now, when you start seeing, and remember, we're still talking about one thing only, we're just talking about growth. It's just how has growth impacted the business performance as it states at the moment. That 2% growth has already consumed $600,000 of cash. If now there's some always, yes, there's a lot of what ifs here, but depending on how we manage the business, possibly some of that can be prevented. So some of the $600,000 is what we call cash wastage. And some of it is part of how we fund growth. So what we're looking for is the way we fund our working capital. And that's why many of the banks talk about working capital funding. This is what it's all about. What they like to fund is the true growth of required working capital, not the wastage component. So keep that in mind. I want to prevent the wastage component in my business, the working capital wastage. So we'll talk about how to measure that in a second.
So Andre, a simple question, because I'm a simple person when it comes to the numbers. If we grew by 2% and we consumed $600,000, and we said, hey, sales team, Team Vanity, get out there and sell more business, and we grew by, we grow by 5% or 6%. That probably has consequences from a cash perspective, does it not?
Absolutely. So if you go in and then say 5% growth, and we'll talk a little bit about how this happened and all the rest of it. You can see there's another $200,000 required to move the business. Everything else staying the same.
Hold on, Andre just did a magic trick there. Did you see that? He changed this is the beauty. We'll do this simulation for you with your numbers. He changed that 2% growth number to a 5% growth number, and what this we call it the insight engine does is it calculates the impact of that in terms of your profit and your cash and your return. And so by increasing the sales, you think, oh, we're all very, very happy. But if you're not accounting for that working capital consumption of $800,000, you're going to have a big surprise. And the king, who's in charge of the cash, doesn't like those surprises.
Right. Now, some other good things happen, but we just really, as you mentioned, you want to focus on, because you said, well, if I had pushed my sales team, to fish in different ponds, right? Okay. And they landed up with this additional, not 2% growth rate, 5% growth rate. I have to think about it from this perspective that I need another just $200,000 to fund that additional growth, right? And so this is a beautiful way when we start thinking, specifically when we do our projections going forward, hey Mick, and this is part of what we're wanting to be able to, that's the richness of the discussion, is right. More about.
So stay with us, because one of the things that we're going to be doing in a little while is we're going to simulate what 2022 could look like. So imagine if we were doing this in your company. So this is yet to come. So stay with us. All right.
Okay. So now, Mick, we've spoken a little bit about growth. We've seen that the 2% growth didn't take us out of the profit hole. We've seen that the 2% growth has consumed a $600,000 cash nut that maybe could be prevented. And that's the big thing. And we've also noticed that at the end of the day, after we finished with our 2% growth rate, we've consumed a net cash flow of about $1 million, right? So that's a little bit over $1 million. Okay. So now let's go and have a look at what has this 2% done for the quality of our profitability. So how happy has Vanity made sanity, right? So the way that vanity and sanity work together, 2% growth rate. Well, previously, interesting enough, we had a 6% decline, and yet we still made some money. So there's a little bit of dysfunction that's happening around that. We declined our revenue and we made some money, but yet this year we increased our revenue and our profitability is down by, from a 2.4% positive position to a 1.1% negative position. And one of the things that we noticed immediately, hey, Mick, is our margins have still declined. Now, do you remember in the summary, what sort of margins did we start off with at the pre-COVID? So let's just quickly have a look and see if we can remember what that looked like. Our margins pre-COVID was about 25.5%. And you can start, I mean, very, very standard, not bad. So somewhere between 22 and, for the better ones, 27%. So not a bad margin, but you can see some margin destruction. There's degradation in our margins moving forward. And part of that, yes, is definitely COVID. And now you can start seeing right now at the end of August, our margins are now 22.5%. So the as you see this gradual decline in margins, you can start seeing the significance of the impact on our profitability. So that's the first thing we're noticing. Also, our variable costs. So, guys, when we talk about our variable costs, in the main, that is our commissions. So the proportion of the cost of commission in relation to total revenue. Okay, so I mean, it's just such an enormous component of our cost, number one, and it's the way we run our industry really from a revenue and sales viewpoint. So our cost of commissions is sitting from about 6% to about 5.8%. And our fixed costs, in other words, all other operating costs, everything else that requires us to operate the business. This is one of the big problems that we are having at the moment is, that the cost of operating the business has gone from about total fixed cost has gone from about 14 cents to about 17 cents. Now, first of all, what we're looking for here is fixed costs to stay round about the 10 to 12 cents max, right? So we're already starting off,
this
behind.
is from our commercial benchmarking. This is what we know a good business can operate at.
Yeah, that's what it is. So and really what that tells us is the sort of revenue that we require. So, cost is cost. We're not about reducing cost. That doesn't exist. What we're wanting to do is make sure that the quality of the cost is to help us, perform better. So it's the value add cost that we worry about, not reducing the cost. So transferring non-value added cost to value added cost. So now we notice that not only did we start off behind the ballpark at 14.5% fixed cost, our costs have jumped significantly to about 17, nearly 18 cents in the revenue dollar. So that is something that we now have to watch. Now, the problem that we always have here, Mick, and this is something that is, very relevant in our business, is that when we want to develop or grow, what's one of the first things we do?
Well, we typically invest.
Right. And what we do, part of that investment is, additional salespeople. That's the first thing we do. So, guys, think about this in your business. What drives cost? Does revenue drive cost, or does, cost drive revenue? So think about that. Very interesting concept. Does revenue drive cost, or does cost drive revenue? So in other words, if I'm investing today, am I going to get that revenue growth that I'm expecting? So the one problem with cost driving revenue, the one thing you do know is the cost that you're going to incur. That you know. What you don't know is the revenue that it's going to produce. So when revenue drives cost, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is I might create revenue and not have the right infrastructure to deliver on it. So therefore, I'll end up having a significant degree of margin degradation and all those other sort of consequences that happen. And then you get this yo-yo effect. Well, one day we grow and the next day we flatten, and then the next day we go down, and all those things happen. And it really, really impacts the way that our financial statements ultimately get transformed into, those solid stuff that make us sleep well. So things to think about very much is, what is happening here? So sometimes, and we've seen a little bit of investment happening in our business. So the problem is with investment, we ding the income statement immediately with the cost of all these additional costs, and with the hope of getting more revenue and more profit in the future. So this is part of that's happening over here. So that obviously has impacted our performance. And you can really see it there and then. Our fixed costs have increased from about $274,000 to somewhere around $343,000 per month. So that gives you just a little bit of, that instant idea. Okay, this is what's happening in our business. Now, once we've determined our revenue growth and how effectively that revenue growth has been converted into profitability, the next driver in our business is the hunger measure, right? So this tells us really all about the performance of the balance sheet. And, what's very important about the hunger measure is that the hunger measure really integrates the way that our income statement or our money-making machine works with our balance sheet. So the income statement equivalent of days receivable, which is one of the first components of our hunger measure, is of course revenue. The income statement equivalent of our days inventory, of course, is our cost of goods sold, and days payable, of course, is our cost of goods sold. So you can see that the the way that our income statement behaves can make a significant difference to our balance sheet. And on the other hand, the way that we're managing our balance sheet can make a very big difference to our cash. So what we notice is our hunger measure previously in the last year, we consumed about 28 cents worth of cash per revenue dollar. 28 cents worth of cash per revenue dollar. Is that a nice metric? It's basically how much do I require to fund that a new revenue dollar? I need 28 cents. Now, so what? That's the question, is so what? Well, look at my margins. My income statement's generating 23 cents. But my balance sheet's telling me, my hunger measure says, I'm a lot more hungry than what you can give me. I need 28 and you give me 23. What do you think's going to happen? I'm going to be a cash absorbing business automatically.
So let's summarize here. Here's one of the key things that we'll talk about with you is that comparison of chapter 3 versus chapter 2. So chapter 2 is how much cash is my money making machine generating for every revenue dollar, and chapter 3, which is our hunger measure, is how much cash is my balance sheet consuming for every additional dollar of revenue. And whenever chapter 3 is bigger than chapter 2, your business is going to consume cash when it grows.
Now, that doesn't mean it's bad, hey, Mick. So we've got to be a little bit careful.
No, it's not a bad thing. We just need to, if we understand that, then again, you remember the king. The king doesn't like surprises. If we know that and we can forecast that, we can accommodate for it. But to blindly think that we can grow without understanding our cash consequence would be a little short-sighted, because we don't want to have surprises.
Okay, we all know that. Okay, so first of all, not only is that our hunger measure has gone from 28 cents last year to our current 30 cents. So it's already now we're noticing that our margins, so think about what's happening, guys. Our margins are declining and our balance sheet's becoming more hungry. You are going to need cash. Now, at some point that can come back. But while we are going through this cycle, we are consuming cash, right? And you can see the reasons why. Remember, the hunger measure has 3 key components. It's our receivables, plus our underbillings and inventory, less the amount of our payables. And what we notice is that our hunger measure, because it's grown by 2 cents per revenue dollar, remember, and we are a $23 million business. So every, $23 million at 2 cents. Okay, think about that, how it impacts, is quite significant. So our receivable days has gone from 87 days to 92. Now, already I know a lot of you would say, well, geez, 87 is already high. Yeah, it's high. And our benchmark there is, somewhere between 55 and 60 days. And one of the things we do in the academy is we teach a capability which we call proactive receivable management. And that substantially drives that number down significantly. So there are techniques that, we can deploy other than we get paid when our customer gets paid. Isn't that a beautiful assumption? I mean, isn't that a beautiful belief system? I love that belief system. Okay, so the impact of our receivables going from 87 to 92, let's just have a quick look, and we can see automatically that, that has driven the fact that we had that, growth in the receivable days, extended our receivable days. You can see what the amount that it did to our working capital. Remember, that was $600,000, reduced that significantly to $300,000. So reducing our net cash consumption to about $746,000, where we were previously over $1 million. So now you start seeing when the bank manager says to you that was wasted working capital required, there is already a good $300,000 purely just because of the way we managed our receivables. So think about that, and let's get out of there and move back to our original numbers. So our working capital being the key components, receivables, inventory. Our inventory and under billings have gone from 38 days to 41 days. Okay, Mick, we know what that's all about. There are some supplier chain issues, okay? But you know what? Here's the problem with the supply chain issue. It's very similar to the situation where people say to me, I only get paid when my customer gets paid. And I'm saying the supply chain thing becomes just another one of those. You know, why is my underbilling gone up supply chain? Why is my this supply chain? You know, it just becomes a natural, and then, okay, well, we've managed to, we've managed to know what it is, right? So therefore we just let it go. And we always like to challenge that. So yes, it is going to impact, but the amount that it impacts can be better managed. We're definitely seeing that. All right, so that's a little summary of our financials. And guys, a lot of this is really about, hopefully, it's the richness of the discussion. It's like what we believe, hey, Mick, it's not the planning outcome. When we plan, it's not the planning outcome. It is the process of the planning that makes really the big difference. All right.
Right.
So now that we've had a little bit of a discussion about our historicals, and what that does is, hey guys, that sets us up, right? So when we look through our, we start determining, what sort of opportunity can we engineer in the organization based on that discussion. Then we start using a little bit of this, where people start, they open up a little bit. They start saying, well, you know what? Yeah, we're not doing that as well. We're not doing that as well. Oh, we've let that one go. But then we start looking at, okay, how do we, manifest these areas and create significant financial performance improvement? And we do that through our projection capability. So, the guys, here's the thing. We can't change the past. It's done. What we can do is we can proactively manage the future. So what we're wanting to do is just let's move our thinking to the end of the year. So, and normally, if we're sitting with actuals at the end of August, the amount of impact that we can do in the last few months to the end of the year, not a lot, but at least it's good for us to know the forecast, the projected, what is it going to look like? And then we start the planning, the strategic discussion for the 2022 year. So let's just see, this is just a helpful exercise. We believe that our growth rate's going to stay pretty much the same. Our margins won't change much from the 22.5. There's nothing there that's going to happen in the current period of time. Pretty much our commission expense, I don't see any changes. We haven't done any strategy around that. Our fixed costs, we actually have employed some more salespeople, so we can have a rich discussion about that. And we think our fixed costs will sort of increase to about $4.2 million. Our really those other items is primarily driven by our rebates from our different cooperatives, and we think there's going to be pretty much just a little bit still coming in there, and let's call that $240,000. So that's sort of the other income stuff. Depreciation stays the same. Our cost of debt is not going to change. It's a little bit on the high side. Let's not worry about our distribution and our tax percentages. And one of the things we can do in the short term, and this is where some of the focus starts changing, is we start saying, okay, guys, look, I know that our receivable days have increased. Now, if we have a specific program around, let's go into proactive receivable management, we believe we can get that down to 85 days. Now, we know we've achieved 86, and this is in the COVID period. So, it's not an unrealistic expectation. And we know that supply chain's a problem, so let's leave it as a problem. And we are going to keep our payable days at 20. And we think that our total capital expenditure is going to be about $400,000. Okay, so guys, what we see here is a quick summary of what's going to happen. Okay, so what we notice is that this will give us pretty much a $23 million business, where we projected to be about 23.1. It's pretty much going to stay. So the flatness stays, but our EBITDA will get worse. So that's already a bit of a warning sign. Our EBITDA will get worse. And our retained profit will be about $800,000, and our net cash flow does improve a little bit. So there's the good news. So now that the reality is not a lot we can do there. So we can now think a little bit about, okay, what is the next period going to tell us? So the next period that we're wanting to focus on is, really how some fairly shorter term elements can drive the performance of our business. And, this is where a little bit of discussion comes to, hopefully we can do a 5% growth rate. And we really like to stress that, but let's say that's the idea. But most importantly, what we need to do here, there's no doubt about it, is we need to get some margin improvement. Now, the problem is we've already got some baked margins already in our backlog. Okay? So that backlog has already been sold in the previous year, and its profitability is what it is. However, what we do is, guys, and think about this very carefully, the way we create significant change, and we're going to be doing this in the academy, there is really 3 key things that we deploy in the short term. 4 key things that happen over time, but 3 key things that really impact the next 12 months. And that is our pipeline management, our work in progress management, which is the key focus here, and of course, getting to know our numbers. So getting to know our numbers is the way we always get better, and our working capital management system is about changing the current. So that's the key focus. So one of the things that we realize in many, many cases here is the fact that, guys, our margins are, margin decline happens because of 2 reasons, right? Margin decline happens because of 2 reasons. Number one, we sold at bad margins in the beginning. Okay, so they baked it. It's baked into our backlog. And number 2 is what we call the red light management system. And the red light management system is where we find gold. Do you remember that damn dragon? That's the dragon that we want to slay. So where we identify, our red lights, we want to keep the green lights, and the strategy, the short-term strategy, is making those red lights get better.
And a red light would be a project where our costs are exceeding our budget, and therefore our delivered margin is going to be less than our sold margin. That's a red light project.
Right. Now, so let's say that just the one element was our focus, and we normally know that brings about, in the 12 months, about 1 to 2%, maybe a little bit better. So let's bring that down just so that we can make this a little bit, aspirational. Oh, I love that word. So 25, so we're going to bring it to 25 cents. Now, we know we can achieve 25. Okay, it was a while ago. It was pre-COVID. It was many, many excuses later, right? Okay, but we know we can achieve it, right? And we maintain our current, because we're not messing around with any of that. We're maintaining our current fixed cost structure at 4.2 million. We don't need to add any other costs. And our, we think our StarNet or will stay, our rebates will stay basically the same at $240,000. And, our depreciation rate, well, it is what it is. And our cost of debt stays the same at 11%. And we are going to focus on, through the current management, we're going to bring this down. Remember, we know that should be around about 55 to 60 days. We're at 85. So this is a big program, and that's 75 days. Now, that is going to impact the way we manage our customers and, all of those good things. And let's say we keep the supply chain issue the same, and we maintain our capital expenditure program, which is really more warehouse management driven. Right. So what does this do for us? Okay. Here is the quick summary, guys, because I know we're running out of time. The quick summary is we move our business to $24.2 million, very similar to what we used to do. Our operating profit goes from negative $340,000 to positive $500,000. So, okay, is $500,000 where we want to be? No. But it gives us a very, very good stepping stone with a positive cash flow. So we've transformed our business to, positive profit, positive cash flow, and we are in a good place to start building on real concrete going forward. So, guys, I think we're getting to the end of it, and we really didn't want to have an hour at this. So we apologize for that. But anyway, that gives us hopefully a flavor.
Yeah, that was fantastic, Andre. Now, if you just think back, the last maybe 7 minutes, we actually 7 to 10 minutes, we went through an exercise of forecasting towards the end of this year. And we simulated a scenario based on certain sales strategies, based on certain, cash strategies. And we were able to deliver a business performance scorecard. And is this the 22?
Yeah. I mean, there it is, Mick. So I know by now.
So just in a few minutes, we've been able to. I mean, think about how long that would take you guys. I mean, you'd have to sit down with, your CFO, who's pretty hard worked anyway, managing all of those numbers. You'd have to go through several iterations with your sales team. You'd come back, you'd sit down, you'd have a weekly meeting, you'd go through it, you'd share several spreadsheets, you'd go through this iteration. It will take you weeks, if not months, to do. We did that in 5-6 minutes. Now, if you wanted to simulate, we want to hire 2 salespeople. If you wanted to simulate, we want to put a new office in and go after this different market. If you wanted to simulate, I'm going to hold more inventory in my warehouse because of supply chain issues. If you wanted to simulate any of those scenarios, we can do that lightning, within a few minutes. And that's what we do inside the Business Health Desk with you. So as you're thinking about 2022, we can tell you where all the strategic implications are. We can tell you where all your opportunities are to get more cash, where your opportunities are to get more profit. And out of that discussion and dialogue, we'll come up with strategies that you can implement so that your business will be better in 2022. And that's what we call the Business Health Test. And you can get the Business Health Test in one of 2 ways. And here's a picture of the health test. What it means is we'll get on the telephone with you and talk about your overall business strategy. We'll take your numbers, put it into this insight engine that we've got, and then we'd have this discussion and a report along what we've just talked about. And you can go to speaktomick.com and you can schedule some time with me and we can talk about whatever your needs are. But there are 2 ways to get the Business Health Test. Number 1, we can just do it and have a strategic planning session with you and just do that. And you call us at speaktomick.com. Or you can join the Academy, and as part of the Academy enrollment, you'll get the Business Health Test as part of that enrollment. If you want to do it standalone, it's $5,000 for us to do that whole simulation with you. We guarantee with a G that we'll find more opportunity than the Business Health Test costs. And if you don't like it, you don't pay us. Very, very simple. We always know we find lots of opportunity. Or you can join the Academy and it will become part of the Academy program. So anyway,
and what is the investment in the Academy, Nick?
Good question, Andre. I was just about to do that. The investment in the Academy is $3,000 per month. And remember, the Academy is open to all employees in your business. The design intent of the Academy is to help you grow your business and your employees. So not only are we going to show you how to move your numbers, but we're also going to give you a mechanism to train your people. There's sales training, there's estimator training, project management training, cash management training. It's all there within the Academy. So, what would it cost to train 5 or 10 people as you think about succession planning in your organization? You can get that within the Academy for $3,000 per month. If you don't want to jump into the Academy straight away, but you have a real need to simulate your business, let's do a business health test, right now for your business, and you can find some time with me, and we'll launch that process at speaktomick.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Mick. We're done.
Okay, well, we'll try and get a little bit more brevity, but we've covered a very strategic topic today, and we just even touched the power of what we can get into. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. As you say, you can watch the replay on YouTube. Look up Mick Holly on YouTube, and you'll find all of the recordings on the channel there. So we'll see you next week.